What if the secret to transforming your life wasn't found in massive goals, but in the tiniest actions you repeat each day? What if success wasn't about talent, luck, or motivation, but about your habits? Small behaviors done consistently, over time. This isn't hype, it's science. In this breakdown of Atomic Habits by James Clear, we'll explore how making just 1% improvements can reshape your identity, your success, and your future. Get ready to learn the system behind behavior, change, habit stacking, and the psychology of identity. Welcome to Book Mind, where we decode the world's most powerful books and transform pages into power. Let's begin. Imagine this. Two people decide to improve their lives. One wants to lose 30 pounds, the other wants to write a novel. They both start strong, full of motivation. They hit the gym. They buy a new notebook. They feel unstoppable. But 1 month later, motivation fades, and their goals sit untouched. Sound familiar? James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says this happens because goals don't determine success. Systems do. He tells the story of how a life-changing baseball injury shattered his face in high school. Recovery took months. He was forced to rebuild everything: his physical health, his confidence, his mindset. And he did it not by setting grand goals, but by taking small, consistent steps, day after day. This personal transformation sparked a lifelong obsession. How do habits work? Why do they fail? And how can we use them to engineer lasting change? Atomic Habits was born out of these questions. But why atomic? Because atomic habits are tiny routines, like brushing your teeth or writing one sentence, but they're also incredibly powerful, like an atom. When these small actions are aligned with a greater system, they compound into massive results. Clear's philosophy is built on this core truth. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And that's the promise of this book and this breakdown. By the end, you'll understand not just how to build better habits, but how to become the kind of person who naturally embodies them. You'll learn the science of habit loops, why motivation is overrated, how identity drives behavior, and how to design your environment for success. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to make small adjustments, tiny atomic shifts, that over time build the life you want. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. James Clear: at first glance, changing your life by just 1% might sound pointless. What difference could something so small make? But imagine improving just 1% each day for a year. It's not just 365% better, it's over 37 times better, thanks to the power of compounding. That's the central idea of Chapter 1. Small habits don't just add up, they multiply. The ice cube metaphor. James Clear shares a powerful image. Picture an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. The temperature is 26 degrees. Nothing happens. 28 degrees, still frozen. Then finally, at 32 degrees, something changes. The ice begins to melt. Was it that last degree that made the difference, or was it the steady buildup of all the heat before it? This metaphor explains why so many people give up on change. They go to the gym for a week. Nothing changes. They eat healthy for a few days. The scale stays the same. They assume it's not working. But what they don't realize is, change is happening beneath the surface. Breakthroughs are often the result of many previous actions, not just the final push. Why goals don't work alone. Clear makes a bold claim. Winners and losers have the same goals. Think about it. Every Olympian wants to win gold. Every student wants to ace the test. Every entrepreneur wants a successful business. So if goals alone drove success, everyone would win. But they don't, because goals are about outcomes. Systems are about processes. Goal: write a book system. Write 1 page every morning. Goal: get fit. System: Walk 10,000 steps daily, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems, and habits are the building blocks of systems. Forget about big change. Society loves overnight success stories. But real success is often boring. It's not made of massive leaps. It's built through small wins repeated over time. Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. It's the invisible valley where you put in work, but don't see results, yet. It's the hardest part of the process, and most people quit here. But if you persist, results will explode, seemingly overnight. Key takeaways from Chapter 1. Small habits compound, just like money. Percent better every day leads to exponential growth. Don't focus on goals, build systems. Progress is often invisible at first. Be patient. Habits are not just about external change, they're about shaping your future identity. Relatable story, example. Let's say you want to become a reader. Most people start with a big goal. I'll read 50 books this year. They buy a pile of books. They make a checklist. They get hyped. But by February, they've stopped. Now imagine a different approach. You start reading just 1 page a night before bed. That's it. 1 page. It sounds silly. But here's the thing. You've just built a reading habit. And once that habit is locked in, it becomes easier to increase 2 pages, 10 pages than entire books. Big success? It started with a tiny habit. So if small habits can unlock massive change, how exactly do we form them? What makes some habits stick and others fade away? In the next chapter, we'll explore the psychology of behavior change and why habits shape your identity far more than you realize. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity and vice versa. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. James Clear. This chapter shifts the spotlight from external goals to something far more powerful: identity. Most people focus on outcomes. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. I want to get rich. These are results. Others focus on processes. I'll work out 3 times a week. I'll write 500 words a day. I'll save $100 every month. These are systems. But James Clear argues that the deepest level of habit change happens at the identity level. I'm the kind of person who never misses a workout. I'm a writer. I'm disciplined with money. This shift is everything. 3. Layers of behavior. Change Clear outlines 3 levels. Outcome-based habits, focused on results, e.g., I want to run a marathon. Process-based habits, focused on the actions, e.g., I'll run 3 miles every day. Identity-based habits, focused on who you believe you are, e.g., I'm a runner. Most people start with outcome and try to work inward, but true change starts from the inside out. Because when your behavior aligns with your identity, it becomes effortless. Identity is the root. Habits are the proof. Clear writes, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. You don't have to become a new person overnight. You just need to start casting votes. Want to become a healthy person? Each workout is a vote. Want to be a writer? Each paragraph you write is a vote. Want to be confident? Each time you speak up is a vote. Over time, those votes stack. They reinforce a new story about who you are. And here's the kicker: your current identity is just a reflection of your past habits. If you believe you're bad at public speaking, it's likely because you haven't practiced it. If you believe you're undisciplined, it's because your habits have reinforced that belief. But beliefs are not facts, they're habits of thought, and habits can change. Build identity through repetition. You can't fake identity. You must earn it through action. Every time you practice the guitar, you reinforce the identity of being a musician. Every time you study, you reinforce being a disciplined learner. Change isn't about flipping a switch. It's about becoming the kind of person who does the things you admire. Clear's formula is simple: identity, processes, outcomes. But to make that real, reverse engineer it. Outcomes you want, habits you'll follow, identity, your Building example. The smoker's identity. Shift Clear gives a striking example. Two people are offered a cigarette. One says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The other says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Both declined, but the second person speaks from identity. They're not just resisting temptation, they're rejecting a former self. That's powerful, because when you see yourself as someone new, it becomes natural to act that way. Key takeaways. From Chapter 2, True Behavior Change is Identity Change. You become your habits, and your habits reinforce your identity. Every action is a vote for who you want to be. Don't just chase goals, decide who you want to become. Build small habits that reinforce that identity every day. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? What would that person do daily? For example, if you want to become a fit person, would you skip workouts or prioritize movement? If you want to become a calm parent, would you yell or take a breath first? If you want to become financially independent, would you impulse buy or save first? Let your identity guide your habits, not the other way around. So you've decided who you want to become. You're ready to take action. But how do you design a habit that actually sticks? In the next chapter, we'll explore the powerful science behind how habits are formed, and how you can use this knowledge to build lasting behavior. Chapter 3. How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. In this chapter, James Clear introduces the scientific framework behind every habit. While habits might seem mysterious or automatic, they all follow a predictable pattern. By understanding this pattern, we can intentionally design better habits and eliminate destructive ones. Clear simplifies the process of habit formation into 4 stages: cue, craving, response, reward. Over time. This loop is repeated constantly and explains how habits are created, reinforced, and maintained. Cue. The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior. It's the signal your brain uses to recognize an opportunity for a reward. Cues can take many forms: time of day, a specific location, an emotional state, or even another person. For example, walking into the kitchen and seeing a cookie jar can be a cue to eat a snack. Your phone buzzing might be a cue to check a notification. Habits start with cues because your brain is constantly scanning the environment for signals of potential rewards. The key to creating a new habit is identifying or designing a reliable cue that will trigger the desired behavior. Craving. The craving is the motivational force behind the habit. It's not the cue itself that causes the behavior, it's the desire it creates. Cravings give a habit its power. They are the emotional or psychological response to the cue. You don't crave brushing your teeth. You crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave doing push-ups. You crave the feeling of strength or confidence that comes afterward. Different people crave different things, even when presented with the same cue. This is why habits are personal. The key is to make the desired habit attractive so that the craving naturally follows the cue. Response. The response is the actual behavior or action you perform. It comes after the cue and craving have taken place. However, whether a person follows through with the response depends on their level of motivation and ability. If the behavior requires too much effort or is too difficult, it might not happen. That's why successful habits are usually simple and easy to start. Making a habit convenient increases the likelihood of taking action. Reducing friction, such as putting your gym clothes out the night before or keeping a book on your pillow, makes the response easier and more automatic. Reward. The reward is the outcome that satisfies the craving and teaches your brain whether the habit is worth remembering. Rewards serve two main purposes. They satisfy your craving. They teach your brain that this loop is worth repeating in the future. If a behavior is not rewarding, it won't become a habit. Pleasure, satisfaction, relief. These reinforce the cycle and strengthen the association between cue and response. The more rewarding a habit feels, the more your brain wants to do it again. This is how repetition leads to automatic behavior. The habit loop in action. Let's take an example of a simple habit, checking your phone. Cue. Your phone buzzes with a notification, craving. You want to know who messaged you and what they said. Response. You pick up your phone and check the message. Reward. You satisfy your curiosity and feel a moment of connection or relief. Over time, this cycle becomes automatic. You don't even think about it. Your brain links the cue to the reward, and the behavior happens on autopilot. The 4 laws of behavior. Change. James Clear expands on this model by turning each stage of the habit loop into a law for building good habits or breaking bad ones. These laws will be discussed in detail in later chapters. Make it obvious. Cue. Make it attractive. Craving. Make it easy. Response. Make it satisfying. Reward. Each law corresponds to a stage in the loop and gives practical strategies for habit formation. When you align all 4, the habit becomes almost inevitable. Why this framework matters. Understanding the habit loop allows you to diagnose what's working or not working in your behaviors. If you're struggling to build a habit, you can examine the loop. Is the cue too weak or inconsistent? Is the craving unclear or unmotivating? Is the response too difficult or inconvenient? Is the reward too delayed or unsatisfying? On the flip side, if there's a bad habit you want to eliminate, you can reverse engineer the process. Remove the cue. Reduce the craving. Increase the friction of the response. Remove the reward. This structured approach makes habit change feel less like willpower and more like a system. Key takeaways from Chapter 3. All habits follow a 4-step cycle. Cue, craving, response, reward. This loop explains how behaviors become automatic and why they are hard to change. You can build better habits by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You can break bad habits by reversing the process. Chapter 4. The first law, make it obvious. James Clear introduces the first law of behavior change, make it obvious. This law focuses on the first part of the habit loop, the cue. The main idea is simple. You can't change a habit if you're not aware of it. Most people operate on autopilot, repeating the same behaviors daily without conscious thought. This chapter teaches how to bring clarity to your habits so you can deliberately shape them. Awareness comes first. The first step toward behavior change is awareness. Before you can build a good habit or break a bad one, you need to recognize your current habits. James Clear recommends a technique called the habit scorecard. Here's how it works. Write down everything you do in a typical day from the moment you wake up. Next to each habit, mark whether it's positive, plus, negative, neutral. Example, wake up, check phone, brush teeth, plus, eat breakfast, plus, watch TV, work, eat junk food. This process helps you see your routine as it really is, not how you imagine it to be. Once you identify what's working and what's not, you can start making intentional changes. The role of the environment Clear emphasizes that environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. We like to believe that we make conscious choices, but in reality, we are heavily influenced by the environment around us. The same person will act differently in different settings. Example, if a phone is in sight, we're more likely to pick it up. If a cookie jar is on the counter, we're more likely to snack. If a book is on your pillow, you're more likely to read before bed. Our environment constantly sends cues, and most of our behavior is simply a response to those cues. Therefore, designing your environment to support your goals makes the right habits obvious and easy to start. Implementation. Intentions. One of the most powerful strategies to make a habit obvious is to use implementation intentions. This means you create a specific plan for when and where you will perform a new habit. The formula is I will behavior at time and location. Examples. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my bedroom. I will walk for 10 minutes at 6 p.m. outside my house. I will write my to-do list at 8 a.m. at my desk. This makes the habit crystal clear. When there's no decision to make, there's no room for procrastination. Clarity leads to consistency. Habit stacking. Another effective technique to make habits obvious is habit stacking. Habit stacking uses your current habits as a trigger for new ones. The formula is, after I current habit, I will new habit. Examples. After I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. After I pour my coffee, I will journal for 1 minute. After I take off my shoes, I will do 10 push-ups. By tying a new habit to an existing one, you anchor it in your routine. The old habit becomes the cue for the new one. Habit stacking is powerful because it removes ambiguity. Instead of relying on motivation or reminders, it builds the new habit into your current behavior patterns. Design your environment for success. Here's a key insight. You don't need to rely on willpower when your environment is designed for success. Examples of how to design your environment. Want to drink more water? Place a full water bottle on your desk. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow. Want to stop checking your phone? Leave it in another room. Want to eat healthier? Put fruits on the kitchen counter and junk food in a hard-to-reach cabinet. Change your environment and you change your behavior. It's not about being stronger, it's about being smarter. Make the cues for good habits obvious and the cues for bad habits invisible. How to break bad habits? If making good habits obvious is the first step to building them, the first step to breaking bad habits is the opposite. Make them invisible. Out of sight, out of mind. If you want to stop watching TV, unplug it and put the remote in a drawer. If you want to reduce social media use, delete the apps from your home screen. If you want to avoid junk food, don't keep it in the house. When the cue disappears, the habit loses its power. Key takeaways from Chapter 4. Awareness is the first step toward change. Use a habit scorecard to identify your current behaviors. Use implementation intentions and habit stacking to design obvious cues. Shape your environment. To make good habits easier and bad habits harder, the more visible and clear a habit cue is, the more likely the behavior will follow. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. This chapter builds on the principle introduced in Chapter 4, making a habit obvious, and dives deeper into the best way to actually start and maintain a new habit over time. James Clear explains that the key to building a good habit is not motivation, but clarity. The more clearly you define when, where, and how the habit will occur, the more likely it will stick. The myth of motivation. Many people believe they need to feel ready or wait for the right time to start a habit. But Clear argues that motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting and inconsistent. What you need instead is a clear plan. That's why vague goals like I want to get in shape or I want to be more productive often fail. They don't include a specific path to action. What works better is a concrete plan of implementation, one that removes guesswork and builds the behavior into your routine. Implementation intentions. Revisited. Clear re-emphasizes the power of implementation intentions introduced earlier. Again, the formula. Caress will behavior at time and location. This small act of planning has a major effect. People who create implementation intentions are much more likely to follow through. Example study. In a 2001 study involving people trying to build an exercise habit, those who wrote down a clear implementation intention were 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through than those who simply had good intentions. Be precise, not ambiguous. Vagueness is the enemy of habit formation. Compare, vague, I'll exercise more. Precise, I will walk for 15 minutes at 7 a.m. in my neighborhood. The latter defines exactly when, where, and how the habit will occur. This removes friction and reduces the need for willpower. It's the difference between hoping a habit happens and planning for it to happen. The role of time and location. Time and location serve as the anchors of your habit. If a behavior always happens at the same time and place, it becomes easier to perform. Over time, your brain begins to associate that time or location with the behavior, making it automatic. Example. Every morning after brushing your teeth, you meditate for 2 minutes in the same spot. Eventually, walking into that room becomes a cue for meditation. Consistency of context leads to automaticity. Habit stacking in practice. Habit stacking helps you attach new behaviors to existing routines. Clear expands on this by encouraging you to choose the right anchor behavior. Good anchor habits are already part of your daily routine, stable and happen at the same time every day, logically related to the new habit you want to form. Examples. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write down 3 things I'm grateful for. After I take off my work shoes, I will change into workout clothes. After I sit down to lunch, I will take a deep breath and relax. Linking habits to actions you already do daily helps you insert new habits seamlessly into your life. Use environment. As a cue when trying to start a new habit, make sure the environment supports the behavior. Example. If you want to start journaling, keep a notebook on your desk. If you want to stretch, put a yoga mat in the middle of the living room. If you want to play the guitar, keep it out of its case and visible in the room. If the tools or symbols for the habit are hidden, you'll forget or avoid it. If they are visible, they'll serve as a daily cue. Don't rely on memory or willpower. Many people make the mistake of assuming they'll just remember to do the habit or wait until they feel like it. But real habit change requires systems, not willpower. Systems are what allow behaviors to happen even when you don't feel motivated. Making the time and location of the habit crystal clear is the first and most important system you can build. Account for your lifestyle and routine. Not all times and locations are equally effective for everyone. You have to choose habit anchors that actually fit your current lifestyle. If you try to add a morning run but you wake up late and have a hectic morning, it won't last. Instead, you might schedule a walk right after dinner. Personalization matters. You must build habits for your life, not someone else's. Start small, stay consistent. Clear doesn't recommend giant leaps. He advocates starting small, so the habit is easy to begin and repeat. Even 1 minute of action counts if it builds consistency. The power of habit comes from repetition, not intensity. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. Focus on doing it regularly. Key takeaways from Chapter 5. Motivation is unreliable. Clarity is powerful. Use implementation intentions to create a clear plan for your habit. Time and location are the most effective cues. Use habit stacking to tie new habits to current behaviors. Design your environment to prompt action. Start small, focus on consistency, and let repetition work in your favor. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters. More, this chapter is a turning point in James Clear's argument. Rather than depending on willpower and motivation, which are both fleeting and inconsistent, we should lean into the power of environment. Design. Clear's central point is that our surroundings shape our behaviors far more than we realize. By modifying the cues in our environment, we can make good habits easier and bad habits harder, without having to rely on constant self-discipline. The invisible influence of the environment. James Clear explains that our behavior is often a response to our environment, not just internal motivation. Every habit is initiated by a cue, and most of these cues are found in our surroundings. Example, If you see a plate of cookies on the counter, you're likely to eat one even if you weren't hungry. If your phone buzzes, you instinctively reach for it, even if you're in the middle of something important. If you walk into a dark room, you flip the light switch without thinking. These actions aren't driven by intention or desire. They are automatic reactions to environmental triggers. Small visual cues drive big behaviors. Clear illustrates that small changes in what we see lead to big changes in what we do. For example, at eye level in the fridge, that's what you'll eat. Book placed on your pillow, you'll read before bed. Running shoes by the door, you'll remember to run. What is obvious gets acted on. What is hidden gets ignored. Therefore, we must design our spaces deliberately to promote the habits we want. Good habits start with good environment design. James Clear introduces the concept of choice architecture, a term borrowed from behavioral economics. It means structuring your physical surroundings in a way that nudges you toward better decisions. For example, goal environment, design, eat healthier, put fruits in a visible bowl, hide junk food, exercise more, keep your workout, clothes and gear ready and visible, reduce screen time, remove distracting apps from your phone's home screen, write more. Keep your writing tools and notebook in plain sight, rather than trying to force new behavior through discipline. You guide your actions through design. The context is the cue. Clear explains that our habits are tied to the context in which they occur. Example, you may not think of snacking until you sit on the couch at night. You may only feel the urge to smoke when you're at a party. You might not feel like working until you sit at your desk. Same behavior, different context, different outcome. Therefore, associating specific environments with specific behaviors helps strengthen those habits. A few ideas. Only use your desk for work, not browsing. Only read in a designated reading chair. Only eat at the dinner table, not on the couch. When contexts are kept consistent, your brain learns to associate that space with a certain behavior. Redesigning your spaces. Clear suggests doing a room-by-room analysis of your environment. Ask yourself, what behavior does this space encourage? Then modify each space to promote the habit you want. Examples. Living room. Turn chairs away from the TV and toward bookshelves. Kitchen. Prep healthy meals and store them at eye level. Bedroom. Keep your phone away from your bedside table and place a journal or book there instead. Office. Use a tidy desk with minimal distractions. Hang visuals or cues related to your goals. Remember, make good habits obvious and bad habits invisible. It works both ways. Environment can also trigger bad habits. Just as a good environment promotes good habits, a poorly designed environment promotes bad ones. Examples. Leaving chips on the table leads to mindless snacking. Keeping your phone within arm's reach leads to endless scrolling. Working in the same space you relax in leads to procrastination. You can't always rely on willpower to resist bad habits. The better solution is to remove the cue altogether. This is why Clear repeatedly says, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Creating habits through environmental identity. James Clear also touches on how our environment shapes our identity. The places we live and work in subtly influence how we see ourselves. A clean desk promotes a self-image of being organized. A yoga mat in the living room supports a fitness identity. A notebook and pen on your pillow reinforce the identity of a writer. Your environment can help reinforce who you want to become, not just what you want to do. Design for default action. Design your environment so the default action is the desired habit. For example, use smaller plates to encourage smaller meals. Automatically. Log out of social media so it takes effort to log back in. Remove batteries from the remote to discourage TV time. Keep your phone charger in another room to limit usage before bed. You are not just changing your surroundings. You're building friction for bad habits and removing friction for good ones. Key takeaways from Chapter 6. Motivation is unreliable. Environment design is far more effective. Cues in your environment trigger most of your habits. Design your space to make good habits obvious and easy. Associate specific environments with specific habits. Remove visual triggers of bad habits to weaken them. Use your environment to reinforce the identity you want to build. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. This chapter, James Clear discusses one of the most misunderstood topics in behavior change: self-control. Most people believe that successful individuals have more willpower, more discipline, or more self-control than others. But Clear reveals a surprising truth. Disciplined people don't have more willpower. They just structure their lives in a way that doesn't require heroic self-control. In other words, the true secret to self-control is avoiding temptation, not battling it constantly. The problem with relying on willpower is like a muscle. It can get fatigued. If you constantly fight temptation throughout the day, your self-control wears down. This is called ego depletion. The more decisions you make and temptations you resist, the more likely you are to give in eventually. Example: if you're constantly resisting junk food in the pantry, sooner or later you'll eat it. If your phone is always within reach, you'll eventually check it. If you try to study in a noisy, distracting room, you'll eventually give in to interruptions. That's why relying solely on self-control is not a sustainable strategy for behavior change. Remove the cue. Remove the behavior habits are a response to cues in the environment. If you can eliminate the cue, you eliminate the temptation without needing willpower at all. Example: want to stop eating late-night snacks? Don't keep them in the house. Want to stop checking social media? Delete the app or block the website. Want to avoid overspending? Leave your credit card at home. Instead of trying to resist temptation, make it invisible. This is the same principle. Explained in earlier chapters, what is not seen is not acted on. Self-control is easier. When you avoid temptation, Clear emphasizes, the most effective form of self-control is proactive. It's not about saying no in the moment. It's about setting up your environment so you don't have to say no at all. It's not that disciplined people are stronger. It's that they encounter fewer temptations because they've made smart choices in advance. They design their lives for success. Examples of real-world applications: digital addiction. Turn your phone to grayscale to reduce its appeal. Use website blockers to eliminate distractions during work hours. Eating habits. Keep unhealthy food out of sight or out of the house entirely. Pre-pack healthy snacks for the day so you aren't tempted to buy fast food. Productivity. Use a dedicated workspace with no TV or games. Log out of email and social platforms when doing deep work. Spending habits. Use cash instead of cards to control spending. Unsubscribe from marketing, emails that trigger impulse purchases. In every case, the approach is the same. Reduce exposure to the cue. The myth of heroic willpower society often celebrates stories of people who have extreme self-discipline, those who resist temptation under tough conditions. But James Clear says that the better strategy is to not put yourself in those situations at all. Don't keep alcohol in the house if you're trying to drink less. Don't buy junk food, just in case guests come over. Don't charge your phone next to your bed if it keeps you up at night. There's No glory in resisting temptation when it could have been avoided altogether. Inversion of the first law. Make it invisible. Clear brings us back to the first law of behavior change. Make it obvious, for good habits. Inverted. Make it invisible, for bad habits. If you want to break a bad habit, eliminate the cue from your environment. Hide it. Remove it. Block it. Distance yourself from it. Over time, with no cue to trigger the behavior, the urge fades. Key takeaways from Chapter 7: Self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term solution. The most disciplined people don't resist temptation. They avoid it, eliminate the cue, and you eliminate the habit. Don't try to be a hero. Be smart. Set up your environment for success. The inverse of the first law of behavior change is, make it invisible. Chapter 8: How to Make a Habit Irresistible. This chapter dives into the second law of behavior change, make it attractive. James Clear explains that if a habit is enjoyable, we're more likely to repeat it. The key to building habits that stick is to design them in a way that makes them irresistible. Something you look forward to, not something you dread. The role of dopamine in habit formation. Clear begins by explaining the role of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and desire. What's interesting is that dopamine spikes not when you get the reward, but when you anticipate it. Examples. When you see a donut, your brain releases dopamine before you eat it. When you hear the notification ding on your phone, dopamine rises before you check it. When you think about the rush after a workout, dopamine spikes before you even lace your shoes. This tells us it's the anticipation, not the reward itself, that gets us hooked. Habits become addictive when they're associated with a positive emotional charge. Temptation bundling. Linking what you want with what you need to leverage dopamine, Clear introduces the concept of temptation bundling. This involves pairing a habit you need to do with a habit you want to do. Formula: after current habit, I will habit I need to do. Then I will habit I want to do. Examples. Only watch Netflix while running on the treadmill. Only listen to your favorite podcast when doing laundry. Only drink your favorite coffee after writing for 30 minutes. By linking something pleasurable with something productive, you make the hard habit more attractive. The role of social influence. Clear explains how our desire to fit in drives many of our habits. We're more likely to adopt behaviors that are socially accepted, praised within our group, observed in people we admire. Humans are herd creatures. If a behavior is normal within your group, it becomes attractive to you, even if it's irrational. Example: you're more likely to eat healthily if your friends do. You're more likely to quit smoking if your partner does. You're more likely to hit the gym if your coworkers talk about it regularly. This is why it's critical to join groups where your desired behavior is the norm. Create a culture where your habit is valued. James Clear writes, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. When you're surrounded by people who embody your desired identity, the habit becomes more appealing, even natural. Want to write more? Join a writer's group. Want to run regularly? Join a running club. Want to be sober? Attend a support group. Identity plus community. Powerful motivation. How to reprogram your brain for attraction. Clear emphasizes that you can train yourself to associate habits with positive feelings, even if they aren't naturally appealing. Start by reframing your mindset. Instead of saying, I have to work out, say, I'm building strength and confidence. I have to cook. Say, I'm investing in my health. I have to read. Say, I'm sharpening my mind. Shift from obligation to opportunity. This subtle change makes the habit feel more rewarding before you even start, which increases dopamine release and habit formation. How advertisers exploit these principles. Clear notes that companies design products to trigger dopamine, by creating anticipation, excitement, and desire. Examples. You don't need a new phone, but the marketing makes it irresistible. Fast food is designed to smell, look, and feel crave-worthy. Social media provides constant novelty, likes, and stimulation. You can learn from this. Use the same principles to make your habits just as appealing. Practical techniques to make habits. Attractive temptation. Bundling pair something you want with something you need. Join a culture surround yourself with people who live the habits you want to adopt. Reframe your habits, focus on the benefits, not the effort. Create rituals. Make your habit feel special or enjoyable. E.g., lighting a candle before journaling. Use motivation rituals to small, enjoyable action right before your habit to build anticipation. The second law in summary, make it attractive. Habits are driven by the anticipation of reward. The more attractive a habit is, the more likely it will become automatic. To make habits stick, don't just focus on what you do, focus on how you feel about doing it. Make it something you crave. Key takeaways from Chapter 8: Dopamine motivates behavior through anticipation, not reward. Temptation bundling makes hard habits more attractive by linking them with pleasure. Social environments deeply shape what we find appealing. Join groups where your desired habit is normal and celebrated. Reframe habits positively to increase emotional connection and motivation. Chapter 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. This chapter continues to explore the second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. By focusing on a powerful and often overlooked influence, your social environment. James Clear emphasizes that our habits are not formed in isolation. We are deeply influenced by the people around us, especially family, friends, colleagues, and communities. We don't choose our earliest habits. We imitate them. From childhood, we absorb behaviors by watching others, and as adults, we're still copying people, especially those in close proximity or with high status. The 3 social groups that influence you. Most Clear outlines 3 layers of social influence that shape your habits. The close, family and friends. The people you spend the most time with have the strongest influence on your behavior. If your family eats healthy meals, you're more likely to eat well. If your friends are ambitious, you tend to be more goal-driven. Clear says, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a group where the desired behavior is the normal behavior. The many, tribes and communities. Humans are tribal. We want to fit in with the group and be accepted. When a behavior is normal in your tribe, it becomes attractive, even if it's irrational. Example. In some cultures, taking a nap in the afternoon is a norm, so it's seen as productive, not lazy. In a gym culture, pushing through physical pain is seen as admirable. In a startup culture, working long hours is respected, even if unhealthy. You naturally conform to the group's habits because not doing so risks exclusion or disapproval. The powerful, people we admire. We are heavily influenced by people we look up to, celebrities, experts, influencers, bosses. When someone we admire adopts a habit, we tend to copy it, even subconsciously. This is why brands use athletes or actors in ads. We want to be like them, so we mimic their behaviors, styles, and even purchases. How? This applies to habit formation. Chapter 21. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. We've now reached the final chapter of Atomic Habits, and James Clear closes the book with what he calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. Behaviors that are immediately rewarded get repeated. Behaviors that are immediately punished get avoided. This is a fundamental psychological principle that influences all human behavior. And yet, it's often overlooked when people try to build habits. Why immediate rewards matter most people. Try to build good habits that produce delayed rewards. Working out pays off after weeks or months. Eating healthy leads to long-term benefits. Investing today yields returns years later. The problem? Your brain is wired to care more about the present than the future. This concept is known as time inconsistency, the tendency of the human brain to prefer immediate rewards over long-term ones. So when there's a conflict between what feels good now and what's good for you later, the present usually wins. That's why it's hard to stick to a budget. Spending feels good now. Quit smoking. The craving is immediate. Build new routines. There's no payoff at first. The solution: make good habits immediately satisfying, since the rewards of good habits are often delayed. Clear suggests hacking the feedback loop by adding a short-term reward. For example, after a workout, enjoy a smoothie you love. After a study session, watch an episode of your favorite show. After saving money, move a visual token like a marble in a jar to show progress. This technique bridges the gap between short-term motivation and long-term success. It creates what Clear calls a second layer of enjoyment, so the action feels good in the moment, even before the real rewards arrive. Why bad habits are hard to break. Bad habits often offer instant gratification. Junk food gives a sugar rush. Scrolling social media gives a dopamine hit. Skipping a workout feels relaxing. Meanwhile, the pain comes later. Weight gain. Lost time health issues. This is what makes bad habits so seductive. They exploit your brain's preference for the present. The key takeaway? The costs of your good habits are in the present. The costs of your bad habits are in the future. This mismatch makes it hard to choose wisely unless you consciously reverse the incentives. How to flip the script on bad habits to break bad habits. Clear suggests making them immediately unsatisfying. You can do this by using accountability partners. Let someone know if you slip up. Creating negative consequences. If you break your habit, pay a fine or donate to a cause you dislike. Tracking the streak. Missing a day resets your progress, and that visual loss feels painful. By making bad habits feel costly in the moment, you rewire your brain's feedback system. Use a habit tracker. One of the most powerful tools Clear recommends is a habit tracker. Why? It makes your progress visible. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. It keeps you motivated. A simple check mark on a calendar can be a reward in itself. This is the visual reinforcement that helps the habit stick. But he also warns, never miss twice. Missing once is human. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit, in the wrong direction. The power of reinforcement. Clear emphasizes that satisfaction is the signal that tells your brain, this is good. Do it again. Without that signal, habits die. The cycle looks like this: cue, craving, response, reward. If the reward isn't satisfying, there's no reason to repeat the behavior. That's why habits that feel good get repeated. Habits that feel bad get abandoned. Your job is to make the cues and responses as easy as possible, and the rewards as satisfying as possible. Make it attractive. Make it satisfying. This brings the book full circle. You now understand all 4 laws of behavior change. Cue, make it obvious craving. Make it attractive response. Make it easy reward. Make it satisfying. This final law, make it satisfying, is crucial for sealing the habit, because what is repeated is what is rewarded, and what is rewarded gets repeated. Key takeaways from Chapter 21. Immediate rewards are key to building habits. Delayed gratification makes good habits harder to maintain. Bad habits thrive on instant pleasure and hidden costs. You must find a way to make good habits satisfying now. Use habit trackers and small rewards to boost short-term motivation. To break bad habits, make them painful in the moment. The 4 laws of behavior change work together to help you design any habit system.